Welcome to the Leaders and Loggers podcast. On this week's podcast, we are talking about how to change the world in 10 lessons from 4 days to save the world. I shout out my friend Heidi Torres and her new book, The CEOs of Networking, and we share a glass of slush from Prairie Artisan Ales from Krebs Brewing Co in McAlister, Oklahoma. My name is Kevin Dawson, and I hope you'll join us for a glass and conversation today. Well, welcome to the Leaders and Loggers podcast. And today we are celebrating episode 102, and I'm about to hit the road for the next few weeks to speak at several conferences across the great state of Texas. And so with that being said, we're going to be doing something different this next week for sure. We're going to try to record a live episode from the HR Southwest conference in Fort Worth, the largest HR conference in the state of Texas, where I have been asked to be one of the breakout session speakers, and many of my friends and actual podcast guests will be speaking. Our keynote speaker that week will be Tony Bridwell, who was one of our guests on the podcast, one of our longer episodes, and one of phenomenal episodes, and one that I was always fond of. But we're going to try something different. We're going to take this show on the road and see what that's like live from Fort Worth while we're there. But before we get into all of that, I want to do two things. One, I want to talk about the beer that we're drinking today, Slush, which is a sour ale with strawberry, raspberry, lemon, and lime from Prairie Artisan Ales out of McAlister, Oklahoma. It's a very pinkish ale. So cheers, y'all. It's definitely sour. We'll see how well I can finish that one. Not that it's not a bad beer, it's just very tart. But secondly, I want to say congratulations to my friend Heidi Torres for releasing her book, The CEOs of Networking. I have had a chance to be featured in the book after a conversation with Heidi. Heidi has been a big supporter of the podcast and someone that hopefully when we're in Fort Worth next week, that we get on the podcast to talk about the CEOs of networking. So Heidi, congratulations, my friend. I look forward to reading through this book and getting your takes on the lessons you've learned when you were writing this book. And thanks again for being a friend and a supporter of the podcast. And congratulations to your success. But that being said, let's move on to the meat of today's topic. So I was asked to write this article for an upcoming magazine to talk about the show 4 Days to Save the World, which is currently available on the H2H network, which you can find on Roku and Google Play, on iTunes, Amazon Fire. Those are all available streaming platforms to watch this show that I had an opportunity to film as a cast member and partner earlier this summer. You will see me and my team in season 2, which comes out in April. But so far, season 1 has released 4 episodes as of the date of this particular podcast. We've watched 3 episodes with How to Reinvent Education. You saw our podcast guest Ted Wakeman and his team tackle the issue of reinventing education. And now we are on episode 4, which is how to end homelessness. And so I won't give that too much away, but the premise of the whole show, if you are not familiar with 4 Days to Save the World, is there are teams of entrepreneurial leaders from around the world who have come together to solve global social issues with viable business solutions in a matter of 4 days. And there are some really neat other individuals who are involved in the project along the way. And so it's one of the most important television series ever shot, because we're tackling global issues like how to reinvent education, how to deal with homelessness, how to end things like suicide, how do we deal with ending a pandemic or dealing with racism and things along those lines. And so it's an amazing show. And so I highly encourage, if you're listening to this, go check out 4 Days to Save the World. You can download it on your iPhone, on Google Play. If you have the Roku app, you can download it from there and watch 4 Days to Save the World. There are many other series that are coming out on the H2H platform, so stay tuned for those. We're going to continue to interview people from 4 Days to Save the World, because there's so many amazing leaders who are on the show, as well as some of the producers. And hopefully we'll get executive producer Christopher Lavaw on here and hear from the genius behind all of this. But today I do want to share what I wrote. And so how do we change the world, and some of the lessons learned from my experience of filming 4 days. And so, so this is me just reading. So I hope you enjoy what I had to write. If you've got feedback, please feel free to shoot me a message, leave a comment, either here on YouTube or on our other social channels. And if you're not following us, please like, subscribe, and share. So when conjuring thoughts of West Texas, where I am currently, most will think of tumbleweeds. There's plenty of them. Sunsets, they're beautiful out here because it's so flat and there's nothing else out. Cattle, there's lots and lots of cattle. High school football, we are home to Friday Night Lights. And pump jacks, lots and lots of pump jacks. If you're not familiar with what a pump jack is, that is the machine that you see that goes up and down that pulls oil out of the ground. And before you decide where you stand on for oil or against oil, just bear with me. So, so West Texas isn't much to behold. If you're looking for picturesque landscapes, and it isn't much to think of as a place that would be willing to fight climate change. In fact, you might even just get ridiculed for bringing up the very idea of climate change in West Texas. West Texas is a pretty conservative politically community. And so oil and gas industry, the energy industry, is what powers most of West Texas economy. So yeah, you wouldn't see most people advocating for that out here when, the lifeblood of the local economy is one of the bigger contributors. So when the opportunity to join all these leaders and entrepreneurs from around the world in Miami to film, this reality television series with a focus on tackling global social issues, including climate change, I was ready to change my view of sand dunes to sandy beaches. So why would a native West Texan with ties to the energy industry be so willing to help develop a viable solution to combat the very thing that has contributed to climate change? People like my family and friends whose livelihoods are under the threat of activists and aren't thinking about the lives that upending a multi-billion-dollar industry would entail. I've always believed in people, and the people of West Texas are the most resilient, resourceful, and friendly people on the planet. If combating climate change is going to happen, then it's going to need the very people who are on the opposite sides of the political scale to help lead the way. It sounds like letting the fox into the hen house, but these people are just concerned about how to take care of their families and live a good life. Like most of us, we want to make sure that we earn a good living, can take care of our friends and our families, and be able to support ourselves with good jobs. That's really what we want. Just like the other billions of people who live on our planet. People are the answer to our issues and our solutions. The people who joined together in Miami for 4 days for one of the craziest, most intense, and best days to work together to solve issues like climate change, hunger, homelessness, cyberbullying, cancer, education, pandemics, racism, suicide, and empowering women, people who came from all sorts of backgrounds, educations, talents, interests, and generations all working together. My time with these amazing people taught me valuable lessons about what it will take to save the world. The following is a top 10 list of those lessons learned from spending 4 days with some of the most amazing people around the world. So, in no particular order of what's most important, what's not, this is just a list. So here we go. Number 10, global collaboration. There's a reason that teams are greater than individuals. And it's not just because more is always better. It's because there's collaborations. To quote my favorite superhero, Steve Rogers, aka Captain America, my faith is in people, I guess individuals. And I'm happy to say, for the most part, they haven't let me down, which is why I can't let them down either. See, when we work together, the impossible becomes possible. I know that's cliche, but that's a fact, especially when you only have 4 days to save the world and you have to work together and collaborate in order to solve issues big or small. So number 9, team strengths. I have been a proponent for helping individuals to learn, gain clarity, and operate in their strengths. A strength isn't necessarily something that someone is great at, but something that energizes them and has purpose. I remember that on our first full day on set, we had just met as a team. And the first question that was asked on my team was, well, what strengths do you bring to the table? And we went one by one around our table. We learned that each of us has unique and valuable strengths that were going to help guide our decision-making process to craft a viable solution to solve our global issue. When it comes to building and leading a successful team, you have to lean into the unique strengths of your people, or it'll make accomplishing your mission much more difficult. And on our team, it just happened to be that we had assembled the perfect C-suite. Number 8, common ground. See, when you bring in 100 people from around the world, you're going to get 100 different backgrounds and viewpoints. And this is going to create a lot of opinions on how to solve the issues asked of all these teams. So to get on track as fast as possible, you have to identify what your common ground will be. See, we as humans believe in being a part of something bigger than ourselves. If we can start with common ground beliefs, we can have a foundation to build from. For example, even though people from my hometown have opposing views on climate change, they do believe that as a society, we should do our best to protect and be good stewards of our environment. See, as we all came together, each team worked from starting and finding a common ground, as everyone had a personal story to their cause. See, it's our stories that define our common existence of our shared humanity that allow us to work from a common ground. Number 7, doing good won't mean you'll be liked. See, we live in a world that values getting likes over doing good for the sake of doing good, but doing good still takes place without the likes. I know going into being one of the part of team climate change would mean that once people back home learned what I was working to solve, would mean I would have a few people, including friends, view me in a negative light regarding to how they view things. Yes, Ralph from Disney's Wreck-It Ralph and his bad guy support group would repeat, "I'm bad, and that's good. I will never be good, and that's not bad. There's no one I'd rather be than me. There's no one I'd rather be than me, and doing good may mean I won't be liked, and that's not bad." Number 6, be comfortable being uncomfortable. Anytime you're in a new environment with new people, new expectations, and any new experiences, it's going to be uncomfortable. Creating a business plan in just 4 days with a team of individuals whom you just met in a location you've never been to, all while filming a reality television series, isn't something most people will find as a comfortable time. In fact, most of us will say those 4 days and the way things went weren't great at all, at least from a filming standpoint. The relationships, the things that we did, those were great. But the production side, that was a lot. In fact, most of us were quite uncomfortable at first, and that caused some initial feelings that weren't so pleasant. See, the military calls this embracing the suck, which means to appreciate or accept that something's going to be unpleasant, but it's unavoidable. See, what we experience is in no comparison to what our fighting men and women in uniform go through, but the concept of embracing the suck wasn't lost on us. Once we got past what we believed to be our suck, production logistics, and schedule. We never knew what was going on. We finally leaned into accomplishing our mission. Note, see, the film and production team were actually really amazing individuals. And personally, our team can't thank our handler like Carlos. Carlos, if you're listening, buddy, thank you for his professionalism and patience in dealing with us. Number 5, the kids are going to be all right. See, I find myself saying more and more things that sound like my parents and their friends, which is a bit scary sometimes because I don't feel that old. It's like those Progressive commercials, are we turning into your parents? It does feel like that as you get older, like, wait, what's happening? I'm turning into my parents, and it's a little scary. And maybe that's just part of getting older and watching the next generation add their voice to the world. But it always seems like the next generation gets a bad rap for not being as hardworking as the previous generation. And there may be some truth to that stereotyping, but it's not the exception to the rule. See, to our surprise and amazement, we were joined by 10 amazing young people who blew all of us away with their passions and ideas and willingness to learn from and teach us about the social issues we were there to solve. See, when it comes to our future humanity, as long as we have young people like these, we're going to be just fine. See, it's the youth that are the future. And if we're going to do anything to solve those things, we have to rely on the youth, and we need to learn to listen to what they have to say. Doesn't mean that they're right, but they need to be valued and heard. Number 4, true values. The success of our team wasn't that we just had assembled like the Earth's mightiest heroes, but from our shared sense of values. As a team, if you don't have shared values, when conflict or disagreements arise, there's not going to be a path forward in which long-term successes will be possible. What helped us understand how we were going to approach how well we were going to work together was understanding that we held as values individually as a team, and those conversations as a team, as one-on-one and in groups, helped us draw inspiration and a sense of connection as a whole. Number 3, break boundaries when it makes sense. See, on a recent chat with our team, we jokingly commented that we never seemed to follow the rules, which was more truth than not, that we never compromise our ethics and values, and sometimes it makes sense to break boundaries in order to do what is right and what you believe in. The world isn't always black and white, so you have to be able to operate and adapt in the gray. To take a lesson from a friend, learn to be fluid, because sometimes being flexible is still too rigid. Number 2, why so serious? See, Heath Ledger's performance of DC comic villain the Joker in the film The Dark Knight was brilliant, and his most memorable line, "Why so serious?" is still repeated long after. See, on our team, we took our work seriously, but ourselves not so serious. The key to success was that there was constant laughter, smiles, and joy. You have to enjoy what you do with the people you do it with, or it becomes just another task. See, to change the world, we believe you don't have to be serious to do serious work. The world already has so much that can bring our emotions down. So why not embrace and enjoy the things that you control, like your laughter? And number 1, X. See, the most important we learned, we as humans need to learn and engage our X. See, the X is your story. What makes you unique, strong, courageous, resilient, determined, and exceptional. Your X is what makes ordinary become extraordinary. See, when we use our X to tell our story, it has the power to change everything. See, the people who hear it will respond by either showing up, speaking up, or syncing up. If we understand our X and harness its power, the world around can be changed for the better of all humanity. See, 4 days in Miami, the X's were on full display for the world to witness. Change is coming for the better, and it's because of X. So that's kind of my experience from that week. And as the show has come out and started dropping episodes, and teams are figuring out where do we go from here, how does our solutions move forward, all these lessons learned are on full display every single day. It doesn't matter if you're on a reality television show or not. See, we as leaders need to engage in our X. because without telling our story and using the power of our stories, how do we inspire those to follow the things that we believe into the next generation? So for last call today, here's what I'll leave you with. Find your X, use your X, and be your X. That's it. Simple podcast this week. Not a long one, because we're hitting the road, and I'm excited to be in Fort Worth. And then in 2 weeks, I'll be in Austin and also in Paris, Texas on speaking as well. And so I'm looking forward to that and a couple other things that are coming up this way. So I hope you'll, if you're at any of these events, come find me. Please, love to visit and connect with you. Maybe we'll go grab some beers in each of those towns, because there's some great places to do so. But thank you for listening to the Leaders and Loggers podcast. And, if you're not following, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button, whether you're on video or on your favorite podcast platform like iTunes or Spotify. And we'll see you next week for another glass and conversation. Thanks. Thank you for watching our podcast. If you enjoyed what you saw today, we hope you would subscribe and share. We'll see you next week for another glass and conversation. The Leaders and Loggers podcast is hosted and produced by Kevin Dawson and L&L Podcasts.